Been teaching myself how to use Blender for the past 5 years. And when I was just starting out, I was finding that Blender was really overwhelming for me to learn. No amount of tutorials was ever teaching me the basics and what I felt was stupid questions. Here's the top 5 things I wish I would have been taught on my first day of using Blender. Starting off, I don't need to learn everything at once, and I also don't need to learn everything. For example, I've been using Blender for 5 years and I probably know 50% of what these things on the left side do. I could probably figure it out on the fly here, but that's not the purpose of this video. Really just making sure I know the tools that I want to work with. There's sculpting, there's grease pencil, there's editing. There's so many different ways that you can use Blender, and it works for those who are trying to have that be their workflow. But for me, my first year, I really focused on sculpting. So I lived in the sculpt mode panel for a majority of the time. I was trying to learn how to manipulate circles and ovals to try to have them look like people. That's primarily where I spent my time the whole first year. It's also really important to know where the axes converge. So when you're first starting out here, you might not have familiarity with moving the 3D cursor, which is where objects populate from. So knowing where those objects converge as you're first starting out is important. So you'll see right here, the 3D cursor is right in the center where these 4 axes meet. And that's where all the different objects will populate as we start adding in different meshes. So if we add a UV sphere in, that's where it's populating, where these things converge, because that's where the 3D cursor is. Next, it's important to figure out where the floor is in the scene that you are setting. And of course, that's going to be subjective because maybe you want to work a little bit lower, like where this is right now, or maybe you want it perfectly straight. What I suggested when I first started is clicking on this x-axis, and you see the green line. That's what I used as my floor every time I would be in a scene just starting out, because then I can move this to the floor or roughly the floor. And then as I add in a plane for the floor, the actual floor, I could then scale it out and we would have a floor for this cube to sit on. As you start populating objects into your scene, it starts to get a bit overwhelming trying to figure out, how can I hover around an object? How can I select an object? How can I focus on just one piece of this large scale scene that I'm trying to work on? So for example, if I added in, once again, the UV sphere, and I moved it over here, or if I moved the cube over here and the UV sphere over here, again, my camera is still moving around that 3D cursor, and it can feel overwhelming when you're just starting out. I don't know what to do. Help me, help me, help me. So what I like to do is I select the object that I'm trying to work on at that moment and press on the numpad, period. And then I'll be able to spiral around an object and it takes my focus and I can start to work on that rather than having to work with the overall scene. And then likewise, if I want to move to something else, I just press period again and it transports to the other one. The last thing that I would love to have learned on my first day of using Blender is how to use the camera. And a lot of times I don't want to mess with the camera. I don't want to set it up or manually do it. A lot of times I want to get involved into the scene, place my camera exactly where I'd like it to be. So for example, if I want it to be here, and then here's the trick to have it jump to wherever you have your viewport, it's Control-Alt-0. And now you'll see the camera is exactly where I was viewing initially. Right now, the camera lens focus is really high, so you're not gonna be able to see exactly what you were looking at previously. But if I scale it out a little bit more, I can start to get the vision, the idea that I was originally trying to go for with my piece of content. So these are the things that I wish I would have learned on my first day. And it's been many, many, many days now of me trying to teach myself, learning ways that work best for me. I figured I would share what's working for me, as opposed to, I feel like tutorials try to teach you too much on your first day and throw you in the deep end, which for some it works well. Like myself, I like to learn in projects, but I know others want to learn little by little. So I always suggest, if you're just trying to start off, first familiarize yourself with the camera and then work your way from there.